Alrighty, so San Francisco 49ers versus Cleveland Browns wraps up in Cleveland, Ohio. Final score 26-8. This was a really ugly one. Another one of those games where you could really turn it off after the third quarter because you knew this Browns team had no chance to win. And it's becoming more and more frequent this season. And really just becoming more apparent that this Browns team is not a good football team. You know, they don't have good players. They don't have a good coaching staff. You name it. Any member of this coaching staff, I think, has some blame for today's loss. I think the only guy, when looking at the season as a whole, that you could say deserves to be here next year is Jim Schwartz. And today, I really don't think Jim Schwartz had his best game, being a defensive coordinator for this team, but he's had some good games throughout the season, I guess. And, that's a defense that's still playing pretty good, but on both the other phases of the game, it was just really, really bad. The offense started decently, and we'll get into that, but the special teams was horrible. And we can honestly just start with the special teams as a whole, because I do want to talk about the fact that I am not sure how Bubba Ventrone has a job to this point. I'm not sure how, Monday after Monday, he continues to have a job for this football team. Whenever this is a guy who has cost, in my opinion, this team a collection of games this season. And while I don't think it's fair to say that this whole loss should be pinned on the special teams, they were a huge contributor in that, and good football teams simply do not allow their special teams to lose games for them. I want to point out the Steelers for a second, because when's the last time you saw a Steelers special teams unit give up a long punt return, to the 15, 20-yard line that ended in a touchdown for the other team, when the defense really hadn't allowed anything up to that point? A dumb play where the kick returner decides to toe tap the ball before going out of bounds for whatever reason. That makes any sense whatsoever. We see that happen from time to time in the league and in the NFL, and I just don't understand what's going through these guys' head on that play. It's really a 40-yard swing. Rather than getting the ball at the, what would it be, the 40-yard line, you get it at the 6-yard line because you decide to toe tap it like you're catching a pass. I just don't understand it. These guys are not prepared on the special teams. They simply do not, on punts, get down the field quick enough. Whatever scheme they have going on their punts is not good enough. Corey Bojorquez has been horrible this year. I get last year there was this thing where Corey Bojorquez is the best player the most important player on this team, and this and that. He's been terrible this year. One of the worst kickers or punters in the league. If he does make a long punt, it's like a line drive, and there's no time for our special teams guys to get down the field and make a tackle on the player. And if it's not a long punt, it's like a 30-yard punt, and it's setting the other team up with good field position anyway. So it's just been really bad from Corey Bojorquez all season long. They need to move off of him next year because it's going to be hard for him to put it back together for this team. Maybe he can go somewhere else and figure it out, but I've had enough of Corey Bojorquez, and I think he has legitimately cost us on numerous occasions as well, even though he does not seem to get enough blame, but I think he really should, in some of these games. So we see, like I said, these crazy plays by the special team that just make no sense. And then to wrap things up with it, we see the punter bobbled every single punt today. Larvinain bobbled every single one. He bobbled the first one in the first quarter, and I was thinking, okay, it's a windy game. You never know. Maybe we should just let him go back out there and see what happens. He goes out, bobbles the second one. At that point, I'm like, there's no way you can let this guy go back out there and continue to catch punts. I don't even care who you have to throw out. Jerry Jeudy if you have to. I don't care. We just need to catch the ball. Fair catch the ball. Don't even try to return it. Just don't give up a fumble And for me, that's on coaching. Like, yeah, you can say, Larvade needs to be better. The coach can't go out there and make the catch for them. But to me, that is true. But also the coach has to realize that this is a guy who is a rookie and is clearly impacted by the weather conditions going on at the moment and cannot handle catching punts. So, he bobbled the first two. He didn't actually fumble them. Luckily, they bounced back to him. But you need to get somebody else in there because what's the worst that can happen at that point? Throw maybe Cedric Tillman can do it. I know he's tried a couple times and has been great, but at least he's not a rookie. I don't know. I know it's kind of nitpicking and it's easier said than done with that stuff, but you have to try something, in my opinion. And at least, you have to have the expectation that you can get these guys ready to play. There's a radar out there. There's weather forecasts. That it's going to be a bad weather game. Bubba Ventrone has to get these guys prepared throughout the week in order to not have these dumb things happen. And at this point, it's too late for him. It's happened way too many times this season. It happened last season too, but the team was so bad that I don't think anyone really noticed it or just kind of went under the radar. And it's not been good enough really since 2023 for Bubba Ventrone, and that's a short enough or a long enough leash for a special teams coordinator. It's time to move on clearly in that spot, going into 2026, and I have the expectation that the team will do just that. So that's really disappointing. And it really just sets the whole team back whenever you have a special teams game like this. Because, as we move into starting to talk about Shedeur and at least trying to have some takeaways with how he played in this one and how the offense as a whole played in this one and even the defense, you kind of, when talking about all of them, you kind of have to preface it with the fact that the special teams really didn't give the Browns a chance to win this game. Not against the 49ers that are one of the more organized teams with Kyle Shanahan leading the way and all that they do over there. You cannot do these things against good teams like this and have any chance to win the game. So, that said, it's really hard to take anything away from Shedeur's performance, but I do want to move into that as we progress along in today's podcast. And we'll just start by kind of going over some of the statistics as there's a helicopter going by, so sorry if you can hear that. But Shedeur goes in this game 16 of 25. So that's not bad. That's what I think over 65% completion, I believe. So that's not horrible. It was only 149 yards, 1 touchdown. And he had his highest rating at a 93.6. So if you just look at those numbers, it's obviously not eye-popping, but it doesn't sound too bad. But here's how I'll break down Shedeur's performance. And like I say every week, you have to watch the tape to get a better understanding. But the first half, I thought he was really pretty good. The one thing he probably wants back is that first throw to Jerry Jeudy, but that he was throwing down the side of the field where the wind was on his back, and I'm sure that ball just kind of sailed on him a little bit. It happens. He's a rookie. He probably really hasn't played in too many windy games like this, which, trust me, that wind was howling at the Brown Stadium today. It really did have an impact on a few of those throws for both teams. So, he was pretty good in the first half. I thought he was taking what was there for him. He definitely wasn't, dancing around back there and taking long sacks, except for that one sack he did take to kind of, I believe it was like towards the end of the first quarter, at the beginning of the second quarter, where the Browns were in field goal territory, but got pushed back with a penalty, I believe. and then the sack following that really took him out of field goal territory, and just kind of ruined that whole drive. So that you can't do that there. He'll learn from those things, I think. Like, that's the type of thing that you just learn from playing in the NFL. When you can't take those types of sacks. At the very least, you should. And if he can't learn from that, that'll be a big issue for him. But other than those two things, I thought he had a pretty solid first half. When we scored that touchdown, that Harold Fannin touchdown, and was also successful on the 2-point conversion, I genuinely thought we would end up winning the game. I was like, okay, we survived the special teams mishap, and now we're back on top, hopefully going into the second half and getting the ball first. So I felt great at that point. Then, of course, the defense lets them march right down the field, get to the 6-yard line, and then have a chip-in field goal in 30 seconds. So that's just not complimentary football. Defense can't do that there. You just have to be better than, especially in a weather game, allowing a team to do that to you, especially Brock Purdy, and the way he had been playing coming into this game. But I'm getting sidetracked from Shedeur. A pretty good first half. I thought he played well. He had the team in a real chance to win the game going into the second half. Also, dealing with some questionable play calling. We had that one drive that looked really good. I think we were at 25-yard line, and we ran the ball 4 times, decided to go for it on 4th down, and got stuffed. And I just don't understand the play calling there. Here's the deal. I understand you running it on 1st and 2nd down in a game like this, especially because they were successful. They were running the ball well. But once you get to 3rd and 3 there, if you know you're gonna go for it, which I'm sure Kevin knew he was going for it there, if he got any sort of positive yardage, or even probably neutral, didn't lose any yards, I just don't understand why you don't end up throwing on 3rd and 3 there, giving Shedeur a chance to maybe just have a quick solution or some sort of misdirection, screenplay, something to just try to get 3 yards real quick with a low chance of anything negative happening, and then end up running it on 4th down, or doing the same thing on 4th down, rather than running 4 times in a row when San Francisco seemed to know, that was coming. Didn't love that. That was very questionable. I guess Tommy Reese is calling plays now, but who knows who made that call in particular. So yeah, Shedeur played well. I think he deserved to have more points on the board than 8 in that first half. And the offense as a whole really deserved to have more points than 8 in that first half, because I thought they were moving the ball better than the 49ers at that point. Then the second half comes and all hell breaks loose. The whole team really played like shit in the second half. Shedeur had a really poor second half, in my opinion. He looked more like the Ravens' second half than anything we've seen since then. So that was not great to see. I think he only had 43 yards in the second half, or 53 yards in the second half. Just really wasn't able to get anything going. But then again, it really is hard to have sustained success with drives whenever your special teams is, doing those stunts where they're trying toe dragging at the 6-yard line on a kickoff and then fumbling punts. So he is dealing with those things. That said, he took some huge sacks there in the second half, and really was not able to overcome some bad O-line play there in the second half as well, and didn't really make any great throws. So overall for Shedeur, I'm going to give him a D+ in this one. I really don't think he was very good. To say that Dylan Gabriel would have played any worse in this game, I think is unlikely. And that's okay. It can't be. We know it's not a linear progression for quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm not saying that Shedeur won't ever put it together and he's a bad quarterback. He didn't play well in this one, and he knows it, I'm sure. Hopefully in the press game stuff and throughout the week, he'll own up to it and say he needs to get better and this and that. And hopefully he'll put the work in to play better next week against the Titans in a game we should win. So yeah, Shedeur wasn't great. Definitely hard to learn anything in a game like this where it seemed like we barely had the ball in the second half. Like, the Niners had the ball for so long, especially with that muffed punt. I mean, they were running it effectively, and, especially there in the second half, and it just seemed like we couldn't get our hands on the ball offensively. So, we take what we can. We'll look at the tape and we'll try to learn something from this game for Shedeur, but it'll be tough. Just a bad weather game, bad overall, really bad performance overall from the football team on all three phases. So, yeah, that's just kind of the way it is for Shedeur. I think he'll continue to start. Schefter made that report last night and this morning, kind of saying that the Browns likely will continue to start Shedeur for the remainder of the season unless he's really poor. So we'll see how he builds on this and if he can bounce back against a bad Titans team. Overall, I guess we can move into the offense next. It's a weird offensive game because, like I said, in the first half, I actually thought the offense was running the ball better than they had in weeks. It just looked smooth. There wasn't any flags. If Shedeur was making the throws he needed to, I think we had like 200 yards of offense or almost 200 yards of offense in the first half. And it looked pretty good. It looked like an NFL offense. But then, the Niners hit that field goal at the end of the first half, and suddenly we're down 11-8. We only have 8 points. And it's like, okay, how good really was the offense, because we're on pace to score 16 points again. So, a weird game. Then you add on top of that, the second half was very unproductive for the offense. After that, we get the ball first. We go 3 and out, nothing going there. And then the Niners have the ball for so much of the third quarter and the fourth quarter that it's just really hard for the offense to really get anything going in general. So I would give the offense... I actually thought the offensive line was okay in this one. I think Shedeur took some sacks that he could have gotten rid of the ball. Took a few of those, especially, in the latter part of the fourth quarter where the game was kind of already over at that point anyway. I thought he took some unnecessary sacks. And I thought the line did okay at times, creating some space in the run game. So, I'd give the offense. There's only 8 points scored, so it's going to be a D for them too. Like I said, a weird game because it looked effective. It looked effective at first. But as the game went on, it became less and less effective, which, of course, is very common with the Kevin Stefanski offense, we've come to know, unfortunately. So, yeah, definitely wasn't a good offensive game by any means. And defensively, I actually thought we played pretty poorly, too. Again, similarly with kind of the offense, it's hard to really put much blame on the defense because the special teams put them in very negative situations on, 2 of the scoring drives that the Niners had? 2 or 3, to say the least. And, that accounts for most of their points right there. So, I overall, I really don't think that the defense would be content with the way they played. I thought in that... still having those short field positions, they got the Niners to a lot of third downs, and they just weren't able to create any pressure, which is of course what Jim Schwartz wants to do. He wants to get teams in third and pass situations and wreak havoc with that defensive line, and they just weren't able to do that today. The defensive line was not as near as dominant as we saw them in the Raiders game, and I thought actually was borderline bad in this game overall. And continues to get more and more banged up, unfortunately, with, seeing Malik Collins go down, and get carted off the field. And Shelby Harris got injured a couple times in this game. Isaiah McGuire went down in this one. Yeah, so it's just, we're becoming more and more banged up there on the defensive line, which is unfortunate because that's definitely strong suit as a football team. But yeah, that said, defense they were okay. I thought they probably would have ended up playing well enough to win this game if there wasn't all the special teams blunders. Like, it's not like the Niners were just marching down the field over and over again on them. You know, they were able to get first downs and stuff, but ultimately, it's hard to judge the defense in a game like this. It's hard to judge anybody in a game that just the team seemed overall so unprepared to actually win the football game, and it starts with the special teams. So, yeah, was not a fun game to watch. In kind of conclusion, definitely adds to the track record of Kevin Stefanski coached games where the team is just unprepared. And it's really disappointing for, Browns fans and I'm sure the front office as well, where, you get that spark in Las Vegas and the fan base kind of starts to buy back in. I know nobody really thinks we were going to go to the playoffs, but we see everyone's watching on Thanksgiving. We're in the hunt somehow at 3-8, and we have Shedeur in there played a decent game, and then we go out there and we just never even gave ourselves a chance to win this football game. And it's a game that I don't even think the Niners played that well in. So that to me, that's just pinned on Kevin Stefanski, because you have to have your team competitive in a game like this, especially in these weather games where a West Coast team is coming in playing at 1 p.m. I just thought, I tweeted it. I just thought that all the kind of outside the box things were playing in line for the Browns to have a really good chance to win this game, even though whenever you look at the talent on the football field, the Niners were so much better, that I thought the Browns really did have a chance in this one. Obviously, you have to be more buttoned up to beat a team that has much more talent than you, and Browns were not buttoned up today. And that's on Kevin. So I guess to wrap things up, my last point is really that I'm not sure how many more chances Kevin can really get at this thing. In last week's pods, I talked a lot about how I still thought Kevin had the remainder of the season to prove to Jimmy Haslam that he deserved to continue to be the football coach going forward into next season, and maybe even draft a quarterback next year in the first round, and all the responsibilities that come with that. But today was a huge step in the wrong direction, in my opinion. It seems more likely that the Browns just beat up on a really, really bad Raiders team last week that had no intention of being competitive than, seems more likely that was the case than this is a Browns team that's turning any type of corner to be maybe put a better foot forward and be more competitive against good teams. And that's a really, really bad sign for Kevin and this coaching staff as a whole in the front office. Any real test this team has had this year against a good team, they've failed, except for the Packers, and Jordan Love literally handed us that game. We had no business winning that one. Jordan Love tried to lose the game, it appeared. So take that one away, and this is a very uncompetitive football team and seems unprepared week in and week out. And I think that's going to ultimately be what costs Kevin his job. I still do believe he's coaching for his job to end the season here, and if he can somehow get this team to be a 7-10 team or maybe a 6-11 team, I think he has a chance to keep his job at that point, depending on how Shedeur looks. But this was a big step in the wrong direction, and I'm just not sure that this is a team going into December here that's going to continue to fight for their coach and play hard for their coach. So things are really stacking up against Kevin as it pertains to him continuing to be the head coach of the Browns. This is I will say this is the first week, and I know everyone has been kind of at this point already, but I've been a little slower to get there, that I am confident that Kevin will lose his job after the season. It's just been too many disappointing performances this season, and also building on a season last year where we won 3 games. It's just, you can only do so much of this stuff, man, and it'll catch up to you in the NFL. Regardless of the coach of the years and regardless of the couple playoff appearances, it's just, owners and fans are quick to forget some of those things whenever you put these type of seasons out there in front of them, especially back to back. So, yeah, I mean, he's not going to get fired in the middle of the season. He's going to get till the end of the year, especially at this point. There's no real use of firing a guy this late in the season. Just wait till the end of the year. And, in that, there does live a tiny % chance, in my opinion, that he can somehow, maybe, how many games do we have left? 5? That he can somehow go maybe 4-1 or something, and, the team kind of rejuvenates itself. But after putting out this performance at home, I find that highly unlikely, and I think more likely than not we'll continue to get beat by the Bills. Will probably blow us out, probably get blown out by the Steelers at home. Both of those games, we know those fan bases travel well, so we'll have a sea of blue for the Bills game in that Brown Stadium, and then obviously all the terrible towels will inevitably be there, when we play the Steelers at home. So I think those will be the final straws, probably the final straw on the camel's back that does represent Kevin Stefanski's tenure here for the Cleveland Browns, and we'll see how Jimmy Haslam responds to that. But, just overall a very disappointing game, and like I said at the beginning of the video, hard to really learn a lot from the technicalities of the players and how they played today, because the team was just not prepared, man. And like I said a couple times, it just to me, the number one sign of a team just not being prepared and being completely unbuttoned up and unprofessional is the special teams doing the type of, dumb stuff we saw today. Like, that's the very first layer you will see in a bad football team. They make these dumb special teams errors and don't even give themselves a chance. So, but we know we've known this for a while, and I think after that Raiders game, we all tried to convince ourselves maybe otherwise. But that said, we'll try to learn what we can for the remainder of the season. The rest of the what are we, 3? Yeah, so there's 5 games left. So, we'll try to learn what we can from the rest of the 5 games, and Shedeur will be a big part of that, I'm sure, going forward. It's becoming less and less likely that he's going to have any chance of convincing this team to not draft a quarterback, especially if we're getting new coaches. But there's plenty of time to talk on that in the offseason, and trust me, I'm sure we will. But we'll try to learn what he has to offer. I still think they need to let him show what he can do a little bit more. We don't have anything to lose at this point. Like, what's the real purpose of putting these training wheels on a guy, whenever we're 3-9 and have no chance to really win many games? So that's going to be a big part of the remainder of the season. Like I said, still a small chance Kevin can somehow keep his job. Who knows what Jimmy's thinking at this point, but yeah, man, it's going to be tough. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It's another one of those seasons where we got to just kind of buckle down, and I don't blame you guys if you don't tune in on Sundays. The only reason I really watch these games in full is because I talk about it on here with you guys, but if not, trust me, I think I'd be finding something better to do with my weekends, and I definitely cannot blame you for doing so. But anyways, guys, that's all I have for today's podcast. Going on a work trip the early half of this week. So I definitely will get a podcast out to you in probably Thursday or Friday, kind of previewing the Titans game next weekend, talking about some of the things maybe said in the press conferences earlier on this week, and who knows what's going to happen. So I'm sure we'll have some news to talk about later on, and then we'll get into the Titans game next weekend as well. So that's all I got. Enjoy your guys' week. Hopefully you had a great weekend. Hopefully you were able to at least enjoy the first half of this game. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.